and 3, and 2, and 1, and go.
Hi, I'm Lou.
Hi, John.
And welcome to our series of what we call clarification, which is just drilling down into some issues that can cause confusion.
Yeah.
This one isn't giving forgiveness, risking just my partner hearing permission to drink again.
Ooh.
Can I say something here? Because I really, the strapline is, "Am I just being a mug?" It's kind of, and I remember when Steve, he's a binge drinker.
Yeah.
At the end of that, he used to feel really, really terrible. And what he wanted was forgiveness. He wanted, what's the word when you let somebody off?
Absolution.
Yeah, absolution. He wanted absolution. And I loved him, and I knew that he felt absolutely tortured and awful. So I wanted to give him, after I'd had, obviously I used to vent, which wasn't very helpful, but I used to vent a lot. Yeah. And then I give him the absolution. But more and more, when I realised actually that we were in a cycle, I just used to feel inside, am I doing the right thing here? Because I know forgiveness is supposed to be good for you and good for them. Or am I just being naive? And just keeping the cycle going.
Yeah, I know as a drinker, I kind of wished life was like an Etch-a-Sketch. You did things and then you pulled the lever across and it just wiped it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even absolution. I just wanted it eradicated. Is there a delete button for the last few days?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that you'll forget about it.
But so the subtext then, if you're not careful, between you and your drinker is they're thinking, I've done something awful, will you forgive me? You say yes. And so what inside they're thinking, I got away with it, I can get away with it again.
She doesn't mind too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, she makes a bit of a fuss, but she's not really that bothered.
Yes.
If I do it again.
Yes, so it is something what you might hear. So my little sneaky suspicion that I was being a mug and they'd hear it's something different was actually going on.
Well, it depends how you approach this.
Yeah.
It depends how you approach this. I mean, if you're approaching it from, am I a mug, then the answer to that is possibly. Is possibly. Because there are two people in this interaction. There are two people in this behaviour. The other bit is that, are you prepared to wander about with the resentment rattling around your head all the time? Are you prepared to wander about with the anger all the time?
I'm still processing the fact that I might possibly be a mug.
Well, there's that as well. Yeah.
Okay, you need to, having lobbed that into my psyche.
What, mug?
Tell me what you mean by you might possibly being a mug. Are you saying you are making yourself vulnerable at this point for your partner not really taking that apology properly? Is that what you're saying?
No, that wasn't what I was saying. What I was saying was that your drinker might think, got away with that one.
Okay.
Got away with that one.
Right.
It was okay. Maybe she's not bothered that too much, because sometimes what happens is that we build up these ideas in our head. I mean, one does. I'm not talking about just drinkers. One does. They build up these ideas in their head about the consequences of doing something, and when the consequences don't quite reach the sort of apocalyptic sort of imaginings, then you think, wasn't so bad. And therefore, as we do things wrong and people react to it, then we very often learn from these things. And if the reaction isn't quite as bad as you've imagined, then you think maybe you get away with it.
Okay.
That's not being a mug. That's the drinker's sort of...
I understand, yeah.
What mind is going on here.
I understand that. So, but... please listen to the end of this video, because we're not concluding that you shouldn't do forgiveness.
Can I just say, we often say at the beginning of videos that it's not rehearsed. This is definitely not rehearsed.
No,
this is us talking it through.
Yeah, we are talking it through, and that's really quite good. So, I suppose the forgiveness aspect is you saying despite the fact that your behaviour is letting me and my family down, I choose to stay into a relationship with you and not let the anger I feel be toxic. The anger you feel is quite, functional. To let that get inside of you and become toxic, it becomes almost cancerous to your soul. It begins to eat away at all the good feelings you feel about your partner. I think to say, I forgive you because I love you and I want to stay in relationship, but the behaviour is not permissible and never will be permissible, and I need to make it clear between wanting to stay in relationship with you and giving you permission to drink again. And it might be quite good for you to make that kind of clarification when you say that you forgive, so that the partner is quite clear about what you are saying it's okay to and what you're not saying it's okay to.
Yeah.
Would you hear that if that came across?
Depends how drunk it was at the time.
Right, so if it's a conversation that you can have when your partner's as sober as possible.
I've always felt that forgiveness was less about the other person and more about me. When I forgive somebody, why am I forgiving them? Am I forgiving them because I think that what they did was okay, that it's okay for them to do it all again? Absolutely not. Very often I'm forgiving people because I cannot live with my head the way it is at that moment in time. I can't live with this resentment. I can't live with this anger. I can't live, And, I remember in an AA meeting somebody talking about resentment. Resentment is allowing somebody to live rent-free in your head.
Yeah.
And there is a real truth about that. So very often the forgiveness is about getting peace for myself.
I think there's two levels of forgiveness. First of all, you do it for you. And then if your world with that relationship is getting better, you can do it more clearly and do it for them. But I think when you live with a drinker, a lot of the time, the real truth is you're doing it for you. You're doing it for the sake of the harmony in your family. And I think you can, once you understand that this is an issue, we've been discussing it, that forgiveness is really important, but it isn't the same as saying, and it's okay to do it again. So what you're talking is you're forgiving the person, but you're not endorsing the behaviour. And that, I think, is a sentence maybe you could put down, I forgive you, but I am not endorsing your behaviour. And I want you to be really clear that forgiveness is not the same thing as endorsing your behaviour.
Well, I suppose it depends whether you're doing this very formally, whether you're actually talking to your drinker and saying, I forgive you.
Yes.
Or whether you're doing
That's a good point. Yeah.
in your head.
Yeah.
Because as you were saying about two levels, this is another two levels.
Yeah,
this is a sort of public versus private forgiveness.
Yeah. And again, all of these things are processes, and we are deliberately in this clarification talking out loud because we are trying to clarify between us to show you that clarification comes through thrashing through lots of different sides of things. That there's no such thing as, and when it's A, you do B, particularly in this area. It's a very confused area, isn't it, living with a drinker?
I mean, we've talked quite at depth about forgiveness. We did a couple of videos. We did a video as us. And we did a video as us as professionals as well. So, and I'll put a link to that at the bottom of this. But the question really is forgiveness, permission.
Yeah.
And the answer to that is no. It's not permission. It's not permission, particularly if you do it privately, in your own head, then no, you're definitely not giving permission. If you do it publicly, no, again, as you say, there has to be a rider which goes along with that. I forgive you, but, I don't want you to do it again.
Yeah. So what you're saying there is in your head, because this is the argument I have with myself.
Yeah.
Yes, I can forgive, but it is an endorsement of their behaviour. So you can do it in your head first of all. So the answer to that question is
that's
yes.
where it starts.
Yeah.
And
then if you can have a dialogue about it, you can say, I choose to forgive you because I love you, but I do not choose to endorse your behaviour. They are not the same thing, and you need to really hear that very clearly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's we've kind of done the subject, I think. What would you like to say concluding?
I'm not sure I would like to say an awful lot in concluding, but I'd like to come back to the fact that, forgiveness is pragmatic.
in this area, very much
It's
so.
very,
Yeah.
well, it's in most areas it's pragmatic. You know, it's pragmatic because it's about trying to live in peace with your head. As you say, there is another level of that, which is forgiving the person for the person.
But both me and John where we have individual situations where we've both been really hurt, and every now and then we rehash.
Yeah.
But actually, the perspective changes as you get away from the emotion. You're able to see the perspective more clearly. We are all the time, hopefully, maturing within ourselves, and therefore we might approach the situation inside. So all of these things are kind of processes, aren't they, of awakening, if you like, and a letting go. So that it very much is going to be a pathway that you're on, and tell me you go up and down with that, I can promise you, with the anger and forgiveness. But do keep doing it. Be kind to yourself on the days you can't, but continue to lead yourself forward. And like we say, in your head and with your drinker, split those two out and make sure that they understand that you're staying in relationship, which is really what the forgiveness is, but you're not rubber stamping anything they are doing with the drinker.
Two things. So what I would say is that, two things. One is that forgiveness isn't an event. It doesn't sort of something you look back and say, well, at 2:10 on a Wednesday, I actually forgive them. You might have to forgive them again at 20 past, half past. You might have to forgive them the Thursday, Friday. It's an ongoing thing, and you might have to return to it on a number of occasions. So it's not something that happens once. Done.
It's a pathway or a journey. Yeah.
The second thing that I would say is about perspective. Perspective changes as we change. If you look at something as a child, you have one perspective of it. You're looking through the lens of the child. If you're an adolescent and you see things in a different way, as an adult you see it a different way. As we change inside, our perspective changes, our view of things change, and what might be really hurtful in one day is a lot less hurtful in another day, as I said. But it's about us changing. It's about us changing inside.
And I would like to say two things. One is, and just really parallel with that, it's so easy to scapegoat our drinker. And when I lived with John, rather perilously, I found out that some behaviours I was absolutely sure it was my drinker's fault. I was bringing across, and it actually wasn't. It was something that went on in me, and so much, because he's dead, he died of cancer. I wish I could have gone back and said, see that was me, not you. And so again, if we recognise that we are rebounding with this situation, it's causing behaviours in us, then that helps us in terms of forgiveness. But can I also say, if you're sitting there thinking, I will never forgive what's going on to me and my family, it is highly likely that you are still lumping those two together. We'll never ask you to forgive the behaviour. It's never going to be acceptable, and no amount of saying I forgive you is going to change that. What we are saying is, if you still love your drinker or your child or your dad or your mum or whatever, forgiveness is saying, I am not going to close my heart to you. I am continuing in this relationship with me being the person who I want to be, and I'm going to continue that journey with you. So please extrapolate those out, because it's really, really important. And you won't forgive unless you understand this is not about endorsing behaviour. It's about heart connection.
Indeed.
And it's why we did this website, because a lot of people don't want to just chuck them out.
It's also very pragmatic.
Yes.
Because it brings peace to you.
Yes, absolutely.
And with that,
yeah, thank you for listening. And again, your comments, and if you want to qualify stuff or if you want to question stuff, we're really happy to do that again. We'll talk about this over and over as much as you need us to do. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.